Welcome everyone for one last time to Science Policy and Advocacy for STEM Scientists certificate course.
And we'll now go on to our final speaker, Jeff. So in the process of you sharing your screen, I will provide a bit of background. So Geoff Hunt is a public outreach specialist for the American Society of Microbiology. He received his BA from Cornell University in 2003 with a degree in biochemistry and got his PhD in molecular biology from Princeton University in 2009. Jeff then worked at the American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, first as the Senior Science Fellow and then as the head of the Public Outreach Department. More recently, Jeff was the director of Lab X, a public engagement program at the National Academy of Sciences. In addition to, as part of his day job, Jeff has been known to perform the occasional science rap. So we hope to be hearing maybe, possibly, a rap today. But I'll now pass it on to Jeff, who will give a bit of an autobiography of what's occurred and life in public engagement and how he focused on various career opportunities. So last but not least, here is Jeff.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. And since I'm going last, I will try to go quickly, just so we can get to the Q&A. A lot of the panelists have already covered a lot of the points that I was going to make. So the first thing I want to ask, and Harinder, if you can throw it up there, is quick poll for everybody. Just let me know sort of in this course, sort of what your interest is in taking the course. I love watching this in real time. It's like a race to see which one's going to win. All right, I think that's everybody who's actually taking the course has now voted. So thank you all for submitting that. So I was interested to know, basically, are people interested in careers? Are people interested in being scientists who can advocate, or doing a little bit of both? So good to know that most of you are looking sort of career focused. And I think Artie did a great job sort of going over sort of the options as a scientist of how you can get involved in policy. My background is a little bit different in that I don't work directly in policy anymore. I did do a science policy fellowship with the American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology out of graduate school. And that gave me sort of a taste of policy. So I got to experience what policy is. And I discovered that I really, really hate politics. And so I really didn't want to do policy anymore. But what I really liked doing was working with scientists and working with them to get them to engage with policy, with their policymakers and their legislators, but also sort of on a local level. And that's really where my career has gone, is more in sort of the outreach and public engagement direction. Adam made a great point about sort of the interest group of scientists is really small compared to all the other interest groups that are out there. And so as much work as we can do to get scientists to call their members of Congress and go out and advocate, that's not nearly as effective as getting an entire community, a city, a region to go out and support your issue on science policy. So I'm really interested in focusing on how do we get scientists out into the field? How do we get them to be good communicators? How do we get them to engage the public? And a lot of the time, what we've focused on so much is, okay, how do I get better at communicating? How do I learn how to reach my policymaker? Chloe listed a bunch of opportunities for career options. But really the focus that I've taken recently is how do we listen better to our community members? Because so much of the time when we're thinking about science, we think, oh, the thing that we do is the most important thing in the world and everybody has to hear it and everybody should be funding it. But that's not necessarily the view that the person who lives next door to you has, who may not know anything about science. So I think when thinking about doing science policy as a career, you want to think about sort of what your goal is for doing policy. What are you trying to get out of it? And what impact do you think you can have in working in this field? You're obviously taking this class. This is a great start in terms of training. I would advise everybody here to look out for additional training opportunities that you can take, especially in sort of perfecting your communication skills. There's a lot of different ways you can communicate. I always make the argument that science communication is not just standing up and giving a talk about science. You can be somebody who's active on social media, you can edit Wikipedia pages, you can meet with legislators. There's a whole list of things you can do to communicate science. In addition to sort of looking for career options, you, I think, also want to look for those opportunities to do things while you're employed. And I think this was a really important point that Karina made at first, is like, do this stuff now while you're in graduate school or while you're a postdoc. You have the time, you have the opportunity. It's really hard once they kick you out the door of your PhD program or your advisor doesn't have money for you anymore to be like, okay, now I'm going to go like do all this volunteer work and really get into this. Well, you know, like, yeah, you can do that, but you're still going to need a paycheck somewhere. And advocacy and engagement are becoming seen as something more, they're more integral to the scientific process, and we're seeing more and more faculty advisors be willing to let their lab members go and do this kind of work. So it's not inappropriate that you would do it now. So I second that strongly. Do as much work as you can now, not only to get that experience, because you really need that experience in order to get an actual job, but also to see what you like and don't like about doing policy. I had only taken a couple science policy classes in graduate school before I jumped into science policy as a fellowship. So I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what I would like or dislike. And I found out, not the hard way, I mean, I found out though that I like certain things, but not others. And when people tell me they want to do science policy, I always say, well, what does that mean? What kind of policy are you interested in? What level are you looking to have an impact on? So that's something that I think, you know, now is the time for all of you to really take that deep look, and based on this class and the experiences and the networking that you do, to get a sense of sort of what it is that you really want to do. And of course, you won't really know until you try, but it's easier to start focusing down rather than just saying, oh, I want to do policy. And then just sort of, I'm not going to take very much time because I know we have a lot of questions, but I think something that I found has been really important is the journey is as important as sort of the destination that you're trying to get to. And a lot of the time you may have this ideal career. You know, people always ask me, how do I get your job? Your job sounds awesome. How do I get that job? And there's not a straight path. This isn't like being a lawyer where you go to law school and then you clerk and then you pass the bar and then you become a lawyer. Like, these kinds of careers are things you just sort of wiggle your way towards based on opportunities that come available to you. So I would say two pieces of advice. One is always take an opportunity, even if it doesn't seem like it's the exact right thing. If it's at least somewhat related to the field that you're interested in studying or interested in being involved with, go for it. Because a lot of us in this field have sort of made our own positions and just happened to be there, shown that we had the skills and the capacity to do the job. And somebody decided, hey, you know, I'm going to pay you to do that. So I think taking that opportunity leads to the second point, which is a lot of this is luck, but it's putting yourself in the position to be the beneficiary of that luck. And so if you are putting yourself out there, if you are volunteering, if you are making connections, that's what's really going to get you success in this field. And it's something that you have to continually work for. It's not going to fall in your lap. And again, like I said, there's no direct path that you can sign up for to follow to say like, okay, I'm going to take all these 3 steps and then I will achieve what I want. So I don't say that to be discouraging. I just say that to, you know, to try to boost your confidence and say like, you know, go for it, you can do it. But, you know, you have to be on the lookout and you have to have that attitude of like, I need to take those steps. So I'm just going to wrap up there because everybody else really covered the points that I would make, and we can go to the Q&A.